Before doers, dreamers, and trailblazers make their mark on the world, there was TCU. TCU, where dreams take their course.
Downshift. One of the principles of the Blue Zone Project is all about taking time to unwind and reset. Our Power 9 is Downshift. Discover your Power 9 at livelongfortearth.com.
Hello and welcome to TCU Sports Now, Game Day Edition, live at Amon G. Carter Stadium. I'm Dusty Baker, alongside Sydney Rindall, Paloma Villicana, and Garrett Padell. 6-5 TCU will be taking on the 7-4 Kansas State Wildcats today at 11 a.m. Of course, TCU is coming off a big win against the University of Texas in Austin. That was their 6th win of the season, and that therefore makes them bowl eligible.
Yeah, and this will be the 3rd season in a row that the Horned Frogs get to go to a bowl game.
Right. TCU is in their 14th season of heading to a bowl under Gary Patterson, which means that Gary Patterson only had 2 seasons where he wasn't bowl eligible. How incredible is that?
It's amazing, and TCU getting that bowl-clinching win last week against Texas, they're just happy to be in this position to go to another bowl game.
Now, Garrett, can you tell us a little bit about where TCU might find themselves in a bowl game after this game against Kansas State?
Yeah, if they win today against Kansas State, they'll most likely be heading to Houston to play in the Texas Bowl against Texas A&M.
And I think a good storyline to point out there is, with Kenny Hill going against his former team,
Right.
I just think that could be a really great matchup to see happen.
Most definitely, but if they lose today, they'll most likely head to Memphis to play in the Liberty Bowl against an unfamiliar SEC foe, whether it's Georgia, Tennessee, or South Carolina.
That'd be big.
And also, potentially, TCU could end up in the Cactus Bowl. They would face a Mountain West foe. Of course, TCU played in the Mountain West 5 years ago, and they would be facing either Air Force or Boise State. Boise State would be an interesting matchup just because those two have really clashed against each other the past 10 years. So I look forward to that. Paloma, what matchup do you think would be the best option for TCU in terms of bowl matchups?
I think the most desirable would be the Texas Bowl in Houston. A lot of the TCU football players are from Houston, so to be able to go home and see their family and enjoy the holiday season. I talked to some TCU football players last night on their opinion that if they won the game today, where would they like to go to the bowl game?
If TCU wins on Saturday, what is your best prediction for our bowl turnout?
They say if we win, we play A&M in the Texas Bowl.
We're hoping for a win on Saturday and then play in the Houston Bowl. That's where I'd like to go, play against A&M.
Are you from Texas?
I'm from Houston, yeah.
Oh, that would be perfect. So you'd be able to see your family?
Yes, definitely.
That's good.
Yeah, we got quite a few teammates from Houston, so yeah, I think they'd like to go back home. It'd be warmer there, so.
What about the Cactus Bowl or the Liberty Bowl? I've heard about those too.
I mean, I'm happy wherever we go.
Yeah.
Ball game's a ball game.
Last week in Austin, TCU got their bowl-clinching win against Texas, 31-9. A big key to their success was the run game offensively. TCU freshman running back Darius Anderson led the charge with 103 yards on just 3 carries. He took 1 carry for 70 yards all the way to the house for a touchdown. And Kenny Hill even contributed in the run game, totaling 78 yards and 2 touchdowns, one from 4 yards out and one from 41 yards away.
That's right, and TCU's defense also looked really well last Saturday against Texas. Ty Summers won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week with 14 tackles against Texas.
And to talk about the Longhorns for a quick second, I think, they really tried to get behind Charlie Strong. It's been a tough week on him. And their defense probably played arguably their best game of the season. I think it really came down to their offense missing one too many red zone opportunities there that kind of, held them back, allowing TCU to maintain their lead, even despite, Deonta Foreman having 165 yards on
Impressive.
31 carries. He's just a
Very
great player to
impressive.
watch.
How crazy is that they left him out of the end zone? Unbelievable.
Especially for a Heisman candidate, it's it's impressive by TCU's defense that they were able to hold him. TCU, of course, has won 3 straight seasons against Texas. Charlie Strong is unfortunately out at Texas. In comes Tom Herman, the man from the University of Houston. Great season for Houston. I look forward to seeing what he can do to really go through this transition period here with Texas. It's been a university that has had rich tradition, has been very successful over time. Of course, they've hit this recent strand of difficult games and situations. So Tom Herman has the potential to really take this team of great recruits and really bring them to the next level once again to where Texas should be. Now, transitioning from TCU football to TCU basketball, the men's team is undefeated at 7-0 this
look
season.
really good.
They look incredible, and they have a big game tonight. It's against 7-1 Arkansas State at home at 7 o'clock p.m. Now, of course, TCU has just come from 2 huge wins against the University of Washington. The first one, of course, came in Las Vegas, where they won in the Global Sports Classic. And then the next game they played in Fort Worth and just beat UW once again.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think some interesting games coming up for at least the month of December will be SMU December 7th. That team's just looking pretty solid, I think, this season. And then the first Big 12 matchup, and probably the toughest test of the season, will be against KU. And that'll be on December 30th, so, way towards the end of the month. But
Going back this past week to their 2 wins against Washington in Fort Worth on Wednesday, TCU got the win. They were trailing by 17 early, came back, took a 23-22 lead. Didn't look back. Star point guard Jalen Fisher had 15 points. Alex Robinson came off the bench, contributed 16, and they were able to corral potential top draft pick Markelle Fultz. He could be number 1. Definitely top 5, probably the best point guard prospect since Kyrie Irving. He had 27 in Vegas against TCU and 21 in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I think people are starting to turn their heads towards TCU basketball. I mean, they have a 7-0 record under head coach Jamie Dixon. That is very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a better record right now than SMU basketball and even North Carolina
What a statement in his first season.
Great. So transitioning to women's basketball, they have a great record too. They're 6-1 this season with only 1 loss to number 1 Notre Dame. Last night they played Butler and they won 79-41. I mean, they creamed them. Senior Jada Butts is a great player. She's been putting up points all year on the scoreboard, and she's a great leader to the younger freshmen.
yeah.
Speaking of the youth, the crowd came out in full force. It was full of middle and elementary school kids from Fort Worth ISD, and their whole classes and their teachers came. It's just great to see the community really get behind this team.
And I think, the team just makes it so easy for the community to come out and support them. Senior Jada Butts, once again, being an all-star. She was nominated for the all-star team of Good Works for her involvement with her family's foundation. That's in honor of her sister. They give out 3 scholarships annually. And to help raise money for those scholarships, she created her own basketball camp, which I just think is great to see.
Well, we get to see Jada Butts tomorrow play against LSU in Baton Rouge at 1 o'clock Central Time. A key matchup also to look for. They play in the Big 12. Their very first game, of course, is against West Virginia, and they are currently undefeated, and that is on December the 29th. So put that on your calendars. That is a big game. Now, transitioning back into college football. The Big 12, of course, with the season coming close to an end, has a huge couple of matchups today. Number 1, Oklahoma in the conference takes on number 2, Oklahoma State in Bedlam. Oklahoma is 8-0 in conference, and Oklahoma State is 7-1. Both teams are 9-2 on the season. The winner presumably would go to the Sugar Bowl. However, there is a slight chance that one of the winners could possibly sneak into the college football playoff. We'll talk about that later. But the loser presumably would go to either the Alamo Bowl or the Russell Athletic Bowl.
And I think really the surprise team of the season is the West Virginia team. They're 9-2, and they're going to finish out their season today with 6-5 Baylor. And I think they're probably looking to go to the Alamo Bowl, and Baylor's probably lined up to go to the Cactus Bowl.
Just below Baylor is the University of Texas. We've detailed their campaign a little bit. 5-7 overall, 3-6 in conference. Finished their season last Friday with a disappointing loss to TCU. And then just right below them is Texas Tech. They're also 5-7 and 3-6. The reason they're below Texas is because they lost head-to-head to the Longhorns, and they finished their regular season at Cowboy Stadium with a big 54-35 dominating win over Baylor.
Key move also for Mahomes, the quarterback of Texas Tech. He's trying to boost his resume to go to the NFL.
Really
So
good this season.
it was a great game for him to really boost that, and I look forward to seeing what he can possibly do at that next level.
Right, and the losing contenders in the Big 12 is Iowa State with a 3-9 record, and Kansas with a 2-10 record. And a big win for Kansas this season was their win against Texas, which unfortunately solidified the firing of Charlie Strong.
Oh, yeah. When Texas loses to Kansas for the first time since before World War II, Texas fans are not happy.
Yeah, exactly. So transitioning to college football playoffs, I know TCU is out of the question this year, but how is TCU relatable to this playoff?
Well, I think to start out, last night's game, Washington beat Colorado 41-10 to win the Pac-12.
Blowout.
Yeah, great game.
Big state. Wasn't even close.
And I think, that's going to help potentially knock out having 3 Big Ten teams up there. And so I think, that could lead then to Ohio State being compared to maybe the 2014 TCU team. Garrett, I know that you had made some comments on that.
Oh, yeah. There are many parallels between these two teams. Both, their only loss was to a top 10 team on the road. In 2014, it was TCU losing to Baylor by 3. This year, it was Ohio State losing at Penn State. And then TCU, they shared their conference title with Baylor. Ohio State will not be able to hold their conference title because they are left out of their conference title game today because it's Penn State who beat them versus Wisconsin. It'll be interesting to see if the committee puts them in. They're ranked 2 right now, but there's never been a team that hasn't won their conference in the playoffs.
And it's interesting you throw those points out there because also those teams beat Oklahoma in the regular season. Oklahoma, of course, is a big name team. Both years, Oklahoma's really good, highly ranked. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays on the resume for Ohio State. Also, those two teams had big or close games in terms of on the road. In terms of TCU, barely beat Kansas 34-30 that season. Kansas was lowly, and this season Ohio State sneaked out of East Lansing, beating a low Michigan State team 17-16. So it was a very close game. Ohio State looked very shaky that day, and we'll see if the committee possibly penalizes them for that. Also, both teams had finished the season winning at home. And, of course, TCU won 55-3 against Iowa State in 2014. And from the number 3 seed, they moved to number 6. So Ohio State's 2 right now. We'll see what happens. Also, between those two teams, they both, of course, had great coaches and still have great coaches, Urban Meyer of Ohio State and Gary Patterson of TCU. But there's another great coach that will be on the field today, and that is Bill Snyder. So, Sydney, can you tell us about what exactly happened to Bill Snyder last week?
Yeah, last week after beating Kansas, that was his 200th career win. The team, just went crazy, and, they just kind of helped out and carried him off the field, poured the Gatorade on him, water, the whole shebang.
Poor guy.
It was a crazy scene. And he's been the coach now for a total of 25 years with a little break there in the middle, but he's back, and I think the team today is just, looking to get him win number 201.
Incredible career.
Speaking of 201, Gary Patterson is going for his 202nd game coached at TCU, which will put him over the top of Dutch Meyer, TCU's legendary coach from the 30s. He's at 201. So Gary Patterson will now have coached the most games in TCU football history.
Awesome. He's really been a cornerstone here at TCU.
And I think what most people don't even realize is that he used to play for K-State in the early 80s. A little bit of safety, a little bit of linebacker action. Then he even just started his coaching career there, which I think is cool to see.
And he was a walk-on on the Kansas State football team. And I think that's why Gary Patterson welcomes walk-ons onto the TCU football team, because he was a walk-on himself. I mean, look at Josh Doxson. He was a walk-on, and he has such a successful football career.
And earlier this season, Patterson hinted at playing his hometown teams, Kansas and Kansas State. And he said early on in his career when TCU wasn't that great, his friends and family welcomed him back in and said, "Good to see you." Now he doesn't get those same happy faces because TCU's been doing a little bit better recently.
Well, with TCU being in the Big 12 for 4 years, Gary Patterson is 2-2 against his alma mater. So today we will see if he can sneak above 500 against them. But that leads us to our favorite time of the show, which is our predictions for the game today between 6-5 TCU and 7-4 Kansas State. So first of all, what we really have to look behind us. The weather is not beautiful today. It is going to be rough conditions. The ball is going to be wet throughout the entire game. And with Kansas State, a running team, I look for that to be an issue for TCU early on. Of course, the QB running back combo between Kansas State's running option is incredible, and that has been the bread and butter for them all season. Their offensive line is a very strong offensive line. That push forward may be enough for Kansas State to get past TCU. Kansas State has also kept games very close this season. In conference, they've had 5 games where the score has been within 1 touchdown.
Wow.
So I look for that to continue today. I also do look for TCU to make halftime adjustments. Gary Patterson is a defensive-minded coach. And so in addition to maybe changing it to a sweater, because it is a little cold outside, sweater vest, we'll see.
Maybe a rain jacket.
Maybe you might need that with what it is today. But
Right.
regardless, I do see him making the necessary defensive changes. And I also see TCU slipping away with this one just barely in a nail-biter, 28-27.
Going off that, I'm, again, with the weather going on behind us, currently raining. We're feeling some wind pickup. This is starting to remind me of the game that closed out the Carter last season, which was against Baylor. And I think experiencing some similar conditions today. And like you said, K-State's ranked 7th for time of possession, and they love to run the ball. And so I think overall with the weather and the field, and currently the tunnels are starting to flood for the team. And so I think it'll just be hard to move the ball effectively. So I'm thinking a low-scoring game, Frogs coming out 21-13.
Well, guys, it is an early game. It is raining, and it's a home game. TCU has performed much better this year on the road, which is strange that they don't play well at home in front of their crowd. So TCU has looked good in the past couple of games defensively. They need to be better at making third down and red zone stops. And with that and the conditions today, I'm going to have to give it to Kansas State today.
Dusty, you touched on Gary Patterson being a defensive-minded coach. Earlier in the week, he mentioned he'd be fine if TCU won 3-2 in a game like this where offense can't really do much. TCU is getting Kavontae Turpin back, so that'll give them a little boost offensively. The run game's been incredible with Kyle Hicks and Darius Anderson. And I think TCU's defense will do just enough for TCU to win in a one-score game.
Well, whether it's overtime, whether it's a 3-2 game, or whether we somehow have a high-scoring game, it's going to be a great day today. I'm excited for all of you guys to watch this, and thank you once again for watching us today on our live show. This has been TCU Sports Now, the last edition in 2016, and we look forward to seeing you guys again in 2017. Wow, it's cool.